Since its release by Naughty Dog in 2013, The Last of Us has had a profound impact on the gaming industry, shaping many PlayStation 4 games that followed. But what makes this seemingly simple story so compelling? And why did Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley think that it was important to tell this story? At its core, The Last of Us explores the flawed nature of humanity. This central theme drives the narrative and helps answer many of the questions that arise throughout the game, including the most crucial question that arises from the choice that Joel makes in the end.
Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Before we begin to understand why The Last of Us is so beloved, there is a bigger question that surrounds the conversation. What exactly even is The Last of Us? To the people who are familiar with this franchise for a while now, I think it's clear for the most of us that The Last of Us is simply about us, or rather the last of humanity in this world. And if we delve further in relevance to the meaning of The Last of Us, it is also worth noting that nothing about this plot is profoundly complex, or even something we have never seen before. In fact, writer Neil Druckmann's basic principle behind writing these stories is simple stories, complex characters, which is very much visible in each and every character in the game itself. This idea builds the foundation of a whole new concept never before explored in gaming. The idea to unravel the motivations and thought process of people rather than comprehending an overwhelming plot designed to subvert expectations. While other stories explore this theme to diverge player expectations through twists and turns at every corner of their narratives, The Last of Us sought to depict how humans would react to a specific event. Loss, to be specific, and what kind of journey would that loss take them on.
Sarah. Move your hands, baby. I know, baby, I know.
The idea is that every choice that a character makes is backed up by a kickoff event, which in the case of Joel in The Last of Us Part 1 is Sarah's death.
Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me. Come on.
And this kickoff event then defines the rest of the journey and how Joel reacts to those successive events. Joel first resisting to take up the quest to smuggle Ellie, then trying to guilt-trip Tommy on this quest, and then in the end ditching humanity are all backed up by the emotions arising from Sarah's death.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me.
All of this is nothing too complex, but a gradual journey of making human choices that we all empathize with. Druckmann's characters have their own volition. Largely, we do nothing on our own to seal their fates, like we do in other video games. And while this might not be a point of merit for a lot of people, I think it's the main reason why The Last of Us is so beloved. Even though it takes a toll upon the notion of the freedom you get in these games, that is precisely the point. This is very exclusively Joel's story. And while we might not have a huge part to play in that, Naughty Dog has never failed to align player motivations with Joel. And the best example to that would be the ending.
Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
The ending to The Last of Us has now sparked debates for almost a decade at this point. Surprisingly, people still argue to this date whether Joel should have doomed humanity at the end of The Last of Us Part 1, even more so after the release of the controversial sequel, The Last of Us Part 2. And I think its ability to keep people talking for years really signifies how beloved The Last of Us is. After traveling with Joel's surrogate daughter and watching him overcome his trauma, turns him into an entirely different man, someone who we root for to win. Because we as humans want to see other humans overcome their difficulties. It's a very basic human trait that writers take advantages of to make us invested in a character's story. And so when we are forced to choose between humanity and Joel's surrogate daughter, of course we would choose his daughter, just like Joel chose her. But interestingly, Joel's choice is not a one-dimensional idea that you can get behind easily. Somehow, no matter what side you're on, you have to come up with a justification for that side. If you're on Joel's side, the capabilities of Fireflies to even be able to distribute the vaccine and not use it as a political weapon surely crosses your mind. But most importantly, was the fatherly love that Joel exhibited for Ellie worth sacrificing for a cure at any cost? That was the central question that the ending of the game posed.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
And I think what is brilliant is that Joel doesn't care about a cure. Sure, he believes that humanity is doomed no matter what and that there is nothing you can do to save these people, but I sincerely believe that even if that weren't the case, Joel would have made the exact same choice, which to me is brilliant. You can give reasons and justifications to the choices these people made all you want, but in the end, the most basic human element weighs above them all: empathy. And everything else just becomes a secondary notion after that. All of these ideas are brought to life with meticulous detail through the perfect voice acting of the unparalleled Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker, backed by Gustavo's magical soundtrack. The music itself represents the overarching theme of simple stories' complex characters. It is such a minimalistic beat, and yet every note perfectly hits the emotion that a scene is trying to invoke. And I believe a part of the reason that The Last of Us Part 2 was so divisive is because people just loved The Last of Us Part 1 that much and resonated with these characters and themes, which I've already discussed more elaborately in one of my other videos. But coming back to the question of is humanity worth saving in The Last of Us, I believe that it's an overarching question in both the games, and it's largely what makes The Last of Us so beloved. Throughout the first game, we see people like David, who pose a bigger question for the future of humanity, rather than a mere cure, or similarly in the second game, the ultimate fight between the WLF and Seraphites. No matter what, people will not return to the normal. And so what is the solution if not a cure? I think that is what the ultimate conclusion The Last of Us Part 3 is going to have, while dealing with the overarching themes of the series. And I think it's also going to be the first time that we are going to have a truly conclusive ending. Because if you look at Part 1 and Part 2, both these games have endings that are satisfactory and full on their own, but not entirely conclusive. And there is just a lot left to interpret. Until then, we have years more to debate about the endings to both these games.